So this is part of the How to Be Negative course. And this month before we'll proceed to a research group therapy session, which I won't record. I'll briefly introduce my essay that I wrote for this month. The full title of it is Therapeutic Society, Toxic Positivity and Critical Psychology. And I don't really write anything new, just maybe summarize some things, but mostly summarize things that was writing about elsewhere, like in my book. And what the fish said this month is the deeper I swim, the darker it gets. And this is maybe a summary, great summary, thank you, Fish, of what I was trying to say. So we would normally think of life as ideally, or this idea that is imposed on us, that life mostly consists of a bright side of it, that the dark side, the bottom, the is not either not necessary or we should avoid it at any cost. So it presents to us as only this white, bright part, only keeping this part is possible, and this is the bright side of life, is life the way it's supposed to be. But according to the fish, the deeper it gets, the more darker, the more painful it gets. And I like those to show those circles. Zapffe is great one to show the perspective that is opposite to perspective of psychology or perspective of therapeutic society, which is society that is psychologized, influenced by psychology in the way we think, the way we comprehend ourselves and each other. So our common way of thinking, which is psychological way of thinking, this circle, assumes that this bright side at the heart of who we are is happiness, brightness, everything is great. And everything else, like anxiety, all the negative things, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, trauma, is secondary. So it's not at the core of existence, it's secondary, and therefore it's the deviation, something to avoid, something to fix. And we more or less live with this assumption. Zapffe, Norwegian philosopher, pessimistic one, what he's suggesting is quite the opposite of this perspective. According to him, uh, it's the opposite. It's rather the darkness in various forms. Either we can call it anxiety or depression or just suffering is at the heart of who we are. We cannot get rid of it because it's a basic structure of who we are. And happiness, it's possible, but it's rather the deviation of from this core. It's not necessary, and it's rather illusionary and secondary. And once this illusion doesn't work, fails to work, we encounter the anxiety at the heart of our existence. We don't want to live. And what's up? The suicidal ideation was quite natural for humans, and which is the opposite perspective. So what is at the core of existence is the opposite in Zapffe in relation to view of psychology and more or less common view we have. So the fish, it explains the problem with the fish, that touching this core, looking within us, looking at the deep enough within us, we might not encounter harmony and happiness and harmonic existence in the world, but rather the opposite, questioning our existence and the horror, the pain of existence, the meaninglessness of existence. So all the dark things that psychology is there to assure us that it's not the way it's supposed to be, but it might be just a lie. So there might be something in this negativity, the darkness, that if it's removed, there is no us because it might be the fundamental part of us. And even though it's strangely killing us from within, so it might be the paradoxical darkness within us that at the same time destroys us and defines us, unfortunately. And in this way, what positive psychology does, which is now standard psychology, the standard of psychology, is from this position of CBT is gaslighting us, trying to install illusion of everything is fine. So this idea that it works, it still works, doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It works, but what it installs is just an illusion. It's the way of self-gaslighting or gaslighting the society as such. In is the idea that everything might be great or everything's supposed to be great, and we can call it toxic positivity. And one of the readings for this month was Colin Wright. We had interview with him who talked about toxic positivity, trying to define society, therapeutic society through this perspective. So it's not only might be seen as the personal trait of some annoying, overly positive people, but as a trait of society, the feature of society as such, the society that we live in, and therapeutic society. So therapeutic society has this toxic positivity to it because there's this presence of demand of happiness that we can feel in various forms of happiness, productivity, and self-care and things like that. It's not just personal goal, but kind of your societal obligation and duty you have to follow. And but the some of the examples that I'm discussing in this essay of the reverse perspective of negative, you can say perspective like Zapffe and critical psychologists or those Freudo-Marxist and a critical, that is negative psychoanalysis, they also spoiler, they also fail to fully embrace this negativity because there is something about this negativity there is cursed. You can neither fully embrace it without attempting to escape from it. And the way Zapffe does it, reversing this positive perspective without calling it positive and negative, but none the way this is what he does. And the way Freud, a Marxist or critical psychologists, critical psychoanalysts doing it, they also reversing positive perspective, but still under the still including some kind of positivity in it. So there is toxic positivity to not only to our society, but also to those reverse perspective that trying to reverse this perspective. So there is toxic positivity to everything. It is cursed in a way that when we try to embrace it, it resists being embraced. Maybe we won't be here anymore if we would fully embrace it, or otherwise we won't have words, or one would not have their self anymore if they're completely negative. But it's also cursed in a different way, in a way that you cannot escape embracing it. That's even worse curse than impossibility of embracing negativity, because you always end up embracing it. It's always there. It's not reducible because it's a core of who we are, of existence, which means that it's also there. Embracement of negativity, it's also there in toxic positivity, maybe especially there. And in toxic positivity and in therapeutic society. So therapeutic society is something that appears to be very positive, might be, not might be, but I think it is also negative. It's a way of working with, dealing with negativity, the very need of escaping it, or very need to construct various frameworks that will present negativity as not necessary is also a way of dealing with negativity. So we cannot neither embrace it fully because we'll disappear. If we touch the dark core of who we are, we won't be here anymore. And neither we can avoid embracing it because it's always there waiting for us, like under any positivity that we might try to pursue, it's still there. This negativity that we're trying to deal with through trying to be positive, kind of being positive, or being positive even in a toxic way is also being negative, trying to escape negativity. Okay, Now I will stop recording it, and if you have any questions, we can discuss it, and we'll proceed in a minute to research this therapy group.